This week's episode of Dr. Stone coming in hot, making gas masks, getting sulfuric acid. I have to say this was definitely one of the strongest episodes of the first core of Dr. Stone. I really appreciate that when they brought up the concept of the cure-all drug. I was actually at first a little worried that maybe they were going to create it a little too quickly and make us feel like there was no real struggle. But for weeks now, they've had to go step by step and create a multitude of tools and really build machinery and technology and tools to get to where they're at. And this is obviously the biggest struggle and hurdle they had to overcome, but it is nice to see that the cure-all drug wasn't something that's easy to make, and they've had to struggle for many weeks now. And I love how they go into detail without making it go boring, but understand how they could create something like a gas mask in this era, even though they're actually ahead of our time. They are back in the Stone Age by all accounts, and it's so interesting to see the overall theme to this episode and how it ultimately wraps up. The idea of fear, and not only how it plays into the past with maybe characters like Koku, and just the idea that she was terrified that should she accept responsibility with what happens with her sister could die and give up, but if she makes her father hate her, well, at that point in time, there's no one to take her place. Then you have characters like Chrome, who is afraid of, how could someone like Senku, even if it's worst case scenario, I'm not going to allow someone to teach me everything he knows because that would give him peace of mind should he die, that I would be able to carry on his torch. I love what fear does for this episode and the idea of pushing away from it, but also overcoming and basically taking fear and making it your bitch. It was so fun to see how they came up with the idea of finding sulfuric acid. At first, I actually thought the idea of the silver spear was something that he was just kind of toy around with Ginro or something like that, make him freak out because, that would totally be a Senku move, make him think that there was some mysterious thing that was going to kill them, but no, it actually was, and I thought it was interesting how they used silver to basically pinpoint this gas that would immediately burn and kill them. And it was so fascinating to see how they stylized it in such an anime way without making it feel like it was supernatural. Of course, we see Goddess rising up from the ocean, but when you're around gas and sulfuric acid, that's going to either mess with your brain, if not totally kill you. And it was fun to see how they stylized that. And for someone who's never seen something like this or even knew about it, of course, this is going to be a curse to them, where for Senku, it's like, no, this isn't a curse, this is just natural Mother Nature, and we're gonna make Mother Nature our bitch. And that's what was so fun, especially seeing how they came up with a gas mask, because at first I was like, I'm really kind of cautious, what are they going to do to create a gas mask with the current tools and technology that they have? It wouldn't be impossible, but at first I was like, is it gonna really just kind of feel and function like a modern day gas mask? But no, they had to make do and do something that's a lot more clunky and maybe not as robust as we would see in our own time period, but it was nice to see how they could naturally create it and the struggles that came with it. But this is where it was really interesting and I think really sold the episode. Unlike with a lot of their technology, trial and error, it kinda can't happen because it's a gas mask. The only way to really test it is to wear it, but should it fail, you're going to die. That was so interesting, and I really think this was the biggest stakes the characters have ever had, even more than going up against someone like Tsukasa, who's trying to kill them. Because this is something that they have to get this acid, there's literally no way to create this drug without this. However, what do? Do we get just guinea pigs to test it out? Well, that's not in Senku's character. Also, to get the materials and what he needs, it has to be him. This is what was so fun about it, and they don't have something like a modern lab where they could easily test it. It really does have to be trial and error without letting it be trial and error. And that has to be probably one of the most intense things within this series overall, especially with the dilemma and just the overall bond that someone like Chrome and Senku have formed. I really appreciate the fact that friendship is something that's present, but not in that cliche friendship is magic, friendship is going to get us through everything. No, it's something that naturally is they've grown this bond. Not only do they have like-minded personalities, it's just something that, you can't sacrifice someone like this. We have to make it so we all survive. And realistically, not everyone is going to survive every step of the way. We all die at some point in time. But doing this, trying to create this drug, there's no reason to just give in the exact same way a lot of these characters never have. And I love that. It's nice to see that Senku wasn't just someone who needed his friends from his original time period. It's nice to see that he is the kind of guy who if you're not a complete and utter dick to him, he can really form an interesting bond with you, and it was so nice to see how they came to that resolve and really, they did their research, they did everything they could possibly do to prepare, and they even had, just like bandages for their equipment should something happen, as it does in this episode. I really think they prepared and it made sense. And in this episode, you really didn't know, would someone make it out alive, because even though it seemed very pleasant, they were going into a very difficult situation, and hell, by the end of the episode, we almost lose Chrome. And I'm sure some people are going to say there was no way he was going to die, which obviously, because we knew that Ginro was coming in, he wasn't. But if we didn't see that Ginro situation, I would have fully bought into him dying, because that didn't look good. And I think the overall tension in the directing, the slow-mo, the zoom in, the panic, it was like, how are you going to save it? And you could argue with logical inconsistencies, like, okay, could he really hold him like that with his spear? But who cares at this point in time, right? Really? The things that they need to cover up and make logical, they do, and it was nice to see that bond and how a character who was so driven by fear of like a curse in the water was able to come in and protect someone, because imagining if he would have died there, it would have provided for interesting narratives for sure, but I am glad that they came out of this alive, and the Senku Dream Team for science was saved, and they really did do the impossible once again. That's what's so fun about Dr. Stone, is overcoming the impossible, but doing it in realistic ways while also being anime. They're definitely anime by the amazing reactions. Ginro probably stole the show with his, just the first 5 minutes of this episode, there was so many points you could just point out to and be like, you gotta love the character just for his reactions, whether it be his wild tongue to just his smugness, you just appreciate it. Or to then he maybe, holding on to a character for dear life with his spear, as maybe realistically with physics, maybe he should have been pulled in with him, but who cares? It's anime, you kind of forgive some things like this. But when it really breaks down to the core characteristics and story progression, it logically makes sense with how they're coming up with these technologies, and it just feels like a very solid series overall. Like, honestly, if this was only going to be a 1-core, it's not, it's a 2-core, it's carrying over to the next season. Should this be the last episode, or maybe next week to be the last episode, you would almost feel satisfied with what they did, because you knew, like, obviously there would have to be some alterations. You could just leave off as, okay, they got the acid, cliffhanger, unless they immediately confirmed like a split core. But it's nice to see what this first core has done. Not only did we get some amazing progression before we reach a civilization, all the stuff that's happened since then, it feels so rewarding, and to see characters who have never seen things like this, whether they think of it as magical and supernatural, or something that's just completely wonderful and magnificent, it's so fascinating not only to see those perspectives, but how Senku is really proving everyone wrong, probably even himself. He puts on this face of he knows what he's doing, but in this episode, he shakes in fear, because this is dangerous. He literally is putting his life on the line for another person and to progress science. This could easily fail, his suit could melt, he could fall in, he could easily die. All these characters probably believe in Senku for the most part, but Senku himself, he says things, he says this is gonna work out, but in the back of his mind, because he's smart and realistic, he easily could fail and die, but he puts on the face that others need to see, and that's what makes him such a lovable and respectable main character. For the most part, he's pretty much won every step of the way, however, he's had to work his ass off to get that win. It's not like someone who just, believes in friends and everything works out. The reason his beliefs in his comrades, his now friends, and just his own mentality is because he does a very realistic thing. He gives people peace of mind, and in result, they can be that shoulder, be that support that he needs in order to succeed. It feels like the overall progression with the relationship and the technology, it feels completely human. And this is a completely anime. I mean, you look at the reactions, you look at the comedy, you look at the absurdity, this is pure anime by every right of the definition. However, when you really break down the core characteristics, it's also completely human and realistic, and that is the blend that makes Dr. Stone such a fantastic series and one of the best of 2019. You really have to give major props though to Ginro and Chrome's voice actor in this episode. Between the hilarious and also the dramatic of not wanting friends to die or feeling like he was just completely shaking in fear, I really appreciate how the voice actors got into it, and every time you see Senku really say like, okay, I know what to say, I know what to do, follow my lead, and characters go against him and say, you're an idiot, I'm not stupid, you're being an asshole. I love it when characters call out Senku, and he just gives that smile and it's like, oh, I underestimated you guys, but I'm glad you're with me. That's the bond, that's the type of relationship you love, and just to see how this cast of characters have grew, I mean, when we first got introduced to this village, I thought it really would be Senku would be the best part of this, but they've really grown into their roles and feel like interesting personalities who can make you laugh, make you cringe at, because you're gonna think, okay, yeah, it's not really a goddess, but you understand why they're saying that. But it's nice how they can blend so many emotions into one wonderful package, and I think this is why Dr. Stone got as popular as it is, because it knows how to continue to keep it fresh. For how many weeks now have we been watching them progress to make a pill? That's literally what the show has been for so many weeks now. We want to make a pill, and of course there's different things they've had to make along the way, so it does look and feel like more than just them crafting a pill for medicine. However, that really is all it was. But the reason it feels so exciting, not only just to see how they take this kind of prehistoric tools and technology to create something that feels modern, it's the personalities and how they incorporate themselves. It's so great that it isn't just characters waking up from basically what we would see as our own civilization, but the fact that there are these characters born into this prehistoric world, and to see how they incorporate themselves with a modern mentality, it continues to feel fresh. And I don't think there's been a bad episode of Dr. Stone. At the very least, Dr. Stone has always been fun, and episodes like these are completely exhilarating and fantastic in every right of the definition. Fantastic episode, definitely one of the strongest. I mean, there's been quite a few great episodes of Dr. Stone, but this is definitely going to be one of the most memorable for the first core, and I can't wait to see where the second core is going to lead us, especially with so many possibilities, especially once, most likely, Sister is healed. Let me know what everyone thought down in the comment section below. Do you love it? Do you hate? Your favorite moment? Whatever you feel, let me know. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and also hit that subscribe button if you happen new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.